Hello everyone, and welcome back to another Crusader Kings 3 guide. I'm Lord Forwind, and this time we are going to be talking about the concept of intrigue in Crusader Kings 3. So Crusader Kings 3 has many different ways to play the game, but the one that most people underestimate and neglect is intrigue. So intrigue can really be divided into two separate things. You've got the lifestyles, obviously, the 3 intrigue trees, which we'll go over. Then there's also all the actions those trees unlock against other people, schemes, hooks, secrets, and the like. And there's quite a large variety to it, and really, in some ways, the game is built on the concept of intrigue. You can't really get ahead in this game by playing everything fair. You really have to kind of cheat, and intrigue is basically you cheating by breaking the laws of the established world at the time and getting ahead. So I figured what better way to show that than the Byzantine Empire. After all, there's such a phrase as Byzantine government and division. So intrigue gives you a lot of options. So let's quick go down the intrigue trees and then we will go over what the different stuff is. So obviously you have different focuses. They have different benefits. Intrigue is heavily linked to the concept of dread, but at the same time, you can play heavily into intrigue without having much dread too, but if you want a lot of dread, you really have to play intrigue. So think of intrigue as the gateway to gaining dread in some ways, but not the same thing. So if you want to do just general intrigue without being, per se, evil, although evil in this game is defined by your religion, and obviously you, the player's personal opinions, you want to go down skullduggery. It gets you the highest level of intrigue, gets agents more likely to accept you. That's the biggest benefits. If you want to go down the seduction tree, you want to take the temptation focus. This is basically going to give you a much better chance at seducing other characters in the game. This tree is very useful if you're having issues getting heirs, or you just want to role play a bit as a bit of a rake, sorry, British terminology, a rake in the game and go around seducing people. If not, don't take temptation, do skullduggery. If you want to be evil and have a lot of dread and intimidate people, there are benefits from dread. People are more likely to accept vassalization, less likely to scheme, other stuff. You want to take intimidation. If you're going to go dread, go pretty much all into dread. If not, take skullduggery. So the 3 different trees obviously support that. Schemer allows you quite a few different ways to improve schemes, and we'll go over these a bit more in a little bit when we go over the different schemes one can pull off. But basically, it's going to make your life a lot easier. In fact, unless you have this, or unless another character goes down this tree too, you're pretty vulnerable to schemes. It can get really annoying when you're king and then all your counselors start getting assassinated, in which case this trait, prepared for anything, will certainly help. Down here, twice schemes deserves a special mention because it adds an additional scheme that you can run at once, meaning you can run 2 schemes, which is really nice. It means you can do a lot. What would you want to use your different schemes for? Well, up here, you've got fabricating hooks. Getting hooks is really useful. You can revoke titles, change laws, demand money if you go down the stewardship tree, avaricious. You can demand payment for hooks. You can generate a lot of money just from schemer and that. Court of Shadows will allow you to disrupt schemes better. This is basically the defensive part of the schemer tree. Over here you've got murder bonus, you've got hostile scheme success, basically allowing you to kill people and succeed at hostile actions against them more likely. Over here, you've got finding secret bonus. I haven't found finding secrets to be amazingly useful. I prefer to just fabricate them. But if you were trying to not just create fake claims, find out stuff, that would be very useful. Over here, you've got abduction. This could be really useful against rebellious vassals, specifically ones that you can't bribe, you can't intimidate. They're just so strong, they're going to want to form a faction. If you kidnap them, lock them up, and if you have a claim on their land that you can just freely revoke. Really useful. The seducer tree. You've basically got 2 different paths. This one is to seduce people. This one is to improve the effects of your seduction. Higher fertility, remove attraction penalties, remove tier difference and incestuous penalty. That's a little sketchy. And down here, you've got stuff that lovers are less likely to join murder schemes versus you and more likely to protect you. This is pretty useful if you've got a lot of lovers or you're in a court that's filled with intrigue, which can happen once a couple intrigue characters appear and they really start killing and murdering people and scheming. It's really hard to stop them. This helps a bit. However, if you're going to do defense, go down the schemer tree. Over here, higher chance to seduce. You get a bonus when using against your own courtiers and guests, which means if you invite people to your court, you'll have a better chance of seducing them than trying to seduce them in their home court, which means bribery can be very useful. This one, non-critical fail, is extraordinarily useful. Critical fails can cause some immense troubles. You can get killed, you can get locked up. The spouse of whoever you're working on can find out as well. Your spouse can find out. You can be humiliated. There's a lot of problems. That really helps, and this one just improves it as well. Down here, the seducer tree is useful. I've never really bothered to go all the way to the bottom of this tree. Most of the biggest bonuses up here, fertility and seduction power, are more useful than going all the way down here. But if you want to finish off the tree, this will give you an attraction bonus, making it easier, and fertility. However, I will point out the fact having lots of children, even bastard children, due to the way succession laws work, can cause you a lot of trouble, especially if you're still stuck under partition inheritance. Torturer obviously is much more into dread. Basically, don't go down this tree unless you want to deal with dread. In fact, Forever Infamous literally removes basically all your dread decay for the rest of the game. Kind of funny because it means getting the final perk, which gives you dread gain, virtually useless because you're never going to lose any. However, Darkened Sights deserves a mention. Basically, if you torture somebody, you can get a permanent 5 intrigue and 5 prowess for the rest of your character's life, which can be really useful as you build things up. Prowess less than the intrigue. The intrigue is very useful. This one's great. Divine Retribution. If you torture or execute people, you don't lose piety or clergy opinion. You can still get stuff like tyranny if you do it to your own subjects, but this will help a lot reducing trouble from doing so. In fact, to the point I wouldn't even torture people until you get this trait if you go down it. Over here, you've got dread gain up. If you're going for dread, it's useful. This one basically incentivizes you to get really stressed out. I never really think this is a good idea. Yes, it gives you huge bonuses, making level 1 really useful, but beyond that, the health penalties basically mean that high stress is dangerous. Down here, dread gain per tyranny. This can be useful if you want to, get a ton of dread. However, tyranny is different than dread, and it gives you a big penalty. This is very useful. Bonus contribution, tax, and levies. It's pretty easy to intimidate people in this game. I found even like 30, 40 dread is enough to intimidate your whole court. That can be really useful. However, there are other ways to get bonuses towards this. It's not worth going down the tree just to get that. This gives you a chance to lock people up. Very good for imprisoning them if you don't want to go around trying and abducting them. And obviously torture here at the bottom gives you dread. Resistance against hostile schemes is very good and increases your levy. Basically, think Vlad the Impaler of Transylvania and Romania area, and you'll see why. He was, basically inspired Dracula. Vodov of Wallachia, caused a lot of chaos. However, I'm going to take a quick detour here into the tree that stacks well with Torturer. If you want to stack Torturer with stuff, going down the Overseer's tree here snags you an additional dread, which can be very useful. The rest of this tree is not overwhelmingly useful, but if you want to go down the dread tree, grabbing that and obviously completing the Torturer's tree, you're going to have like 60 base dread, plus you're never going to have any decay. So really, really powerful. If you're going to go down and want to play dread the long term, obviously there's a whole legacy tree for that, which is Guile, Dread Gain, Long Reach, Natural Schemers, Venial. This is actually good for the reduction to tyranny if you're worried about that. And this one prevents murder against each dynasty member. Be aware that also applies to your own murder schemes against your own family members, so less useful. Basically, you can play a very evil group of families using that. Now, in terms of this, in schemes you can do, obviously a lot of these schemes are not unlocked because we haven't gone down that tree, but you would find them all down here under the hostile or personal. This is where you would try and do seduction and swaying and all the other less violent schemes. Down here is where you would see imprison, murderer, kidnap, abduction. All of those will be under that tree, and obviously those unlock as you go down the intrigue tree. Intrigue tree gives you more options. This makes you more dreadful. This makes you good at seduction. However, it is important to note you can do all the seduction stuff without going down this tree. It's just going to be a lot harder. So why conceptually do you want to use intrigue? Now, for me, who having played Crusader Kings 2, it's pretty obvious, but for somebody who might not have played it, I'll try and go over the basics. Intrigue allows you to, as I said, break the game's rules, but it allows you to do it in such a way that getting caught has penalties, but succeeding can have immense bonuses. You can lock up your neighboring dukes and stuff, and then use that to enforce religion changes, revoke claims, demand money, or to just get hooks on them to fight law changes against your liege. If you're the liege, it allows you to lock up, intimidate your vassals, seduce their children, etc., etc., etc. I tend to use the seduction tree only to get heirs, but that's my play style. Otherwise, it doesn't have great bonuses. The dread tree, I haven't done an entire high dread run. All I know is it's intimidating, basically, because everybody's going to hate you at all times. So just be wary of the fact that if you do heavy intrigue, it's going to cause problems. However, the fact that you can abduct people to revoke schemes, convert people. You've got a stubborn vassal. This person, for instance, you could lock them up, force them to change their religion, force them to give you land, etc., etc. It's really powerful, but it sadly needs a little improvement, and it requires experimentation. So if you're going to do it, don't do it on a game you want to keep. The odds of you messing up are tricky. It'll give you options for every intrigue event. Picking the right one can have benefits. Picking wrong ones can cause nasty penalties. It can be pretty fun, but also pretty risky. Basically, use it when you have things you need to do that you can't do legally. The biggest one I found was the fabricate hooks. That allows you to control vassals, revoke land, etc. The other ones, they're a little bit more hostile. I would find you'd want to use them if you're struggling to maintain control of your country, to intimidate or control them. For example, if you're, I don't know, the Seljuk Empire here, there's a lot of vassals that are both of their religion, but there's also ones not of their religion. There's also different culture groups. Using arrest, imprisonment, etc., etc., you can force or detain your largest vassals, then they can't join factions against you. I find that actually to be the most useful thing, locking people up so they can't join factions or revolt against you. Just be aware you're going to get ransom demands. Letting them go after you imprison people, they then can join factions again and stuff, so it's risky. Anyway, I can't do too much more detail. It's not an area of the game I have an immense amount of expertise in. Plus, it requires a lot of practice in the sense of trying to get what you want from it. Just be aware that if you're not good at intrigue, you're really not good at Crusader Kings 3 yet. It's that important to how things function. The ability to revoke stuff and lock people up willy-nilly without reasons is unbelievably powerful. It will solve half of your internal rest issues. You can even try abducting foreign rulers. If you abduct the foreign ruler the day after you declare war, you win the war, because you'll have a 100% war score. So you can use it as a small country to beat larger ones. Like, you could go to this guy and basically say, oh, I want to murder you, or kidnap them. And then day after the war, or day before the war, you assassinate their ruler. All of a sudden, their empire has multiple heirs, internal factions. They're much weaker. Or you kidnap them, or etc. You can actually imprison foreign rulers, I found sometimes, and then force them to convert to your religion, thereby removing your reason to invade their realm. So if you don't want to invade a small country because it's too much work, or they're a large country and they're too powerful, by all means, abduct them, seduce them, etc., etc. You can do a lot of crazy stuff. It's a great way to get rivals if you're into creating tons of rivals and then fighting and killing them for the bonuses. But I wouldn't really go down that tree. You can play an entire Crusader Kings 3 game without using Intrigue, but once things start to go bad or you're struggling with it, that's when you have to turn to Intrigue. Anyway, that will be it for this guide. Sorry I couldn't show you more specific details on it, but every Intrigue situation is different. Basically, why you would use it because of different situations in your realm. So that's it for me. Hopefully you've enjoyed this. If you did, like, subscribe, watch my other guides. Honestly, they're probably better than this one. And I do have a Discord page. If you haven't found that, it should be on my homepage. And I hope to see you all in another video. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.